So let's switch over and take a look at this live. So at a high level, this environment is managing a handful of clusters, only 4. I've got an ICP cluster. I've also got 3 clusters that are running OpenShift. And I can take a look at those clusters. Now, this is about where the overlap between OpenShift Cluster Manager and MultiCloud Manager stop, is the ability to view clusters and understand at a high level, are they healthy? Now, we're able to see not only OpenShift clusters, but also clusters on Amazon or on GKE. And in this case, I can drop in and get some summarized details about that cluster as well. And I think my other cluster actually brings in a few events. So let me show you that one. So give that just a moment there. But ultimately, this gives me a summary of how many applications are on this cluster, how many nodes. Down below, I can see how many incidents have occurred. I can see how many policy violations, et cetera, are also part of that. So in addition to being able to see things like the violations, I can also understand its health because we've integrated Prometheus and Grafana to make that easy to view those overall health metrics. Now, once I have the clusters under management, again, visibility becomes that first kind of issue that many clients want to go out and solve. Here, we actually allow you to build reusable queries. So I could say find all of the workloads running across all of the environments. In this case, I've got a little bit more than 800 workloads that are up and running that make up, let's see, I've got nearly 700 related pods, and I can see the various relationships. Now, this is a lot of data. I probably don't need all of this. I probably want something more specific. Maybe I'm doing a kind of problem diagnosis. So I want to see what pods are unhealthy on which clusters. So this query allows us to go out and find which actual pods, which application instances on which clusters are currently in an unhealthy state. So here I might have an issue with a pull secret that needs to go and get reconciled. On any environment that's large enough, there'll always be some issue that's failing. And the whole point of Kubernetes is really that we're building applications that become more resilient to failure and allowing Kubernetes to help us resolve when problems occur. So restarting the pod if it goes into an unhealthy state. So ultimately, I can hit this through the interface. I can build new queries as well. So for example, I may want to look for all objects of kind deployment that have a label of cluster API. And there I have the 2 OpenShift clusters showing me that result. So and then again, I can save this if I need to. So once I've got search visibility, now let's think about using those clusters to deliver application workloads. This is where we've actually built, again, this operator pattern for the application. I can define the application and I can see where all of the parts of that application are running. And in this case, in the latest release, we introduced this idea of a channel. Really simple. It mirrors almost every continuous delivery representation of the same word. A channel is just a stream of versions. So I have a CD pipeline. It publishes a new Helm chart. It publishes a new image. That now becomes a new version available in the channel. And then we define a subscription that says, I want to pull down these packages from that channel. And so in our diagram, we can see I've got the subscription that's linked to my channel. It's got a placement rule that's put it on a particular cluster. And I can see all of the parts of that application that are running on that cluster. So from here, I can also edit these and make changes if I need to. Typically, I wouldn't do this in process, but it sometimes is helpful just to get down to what was that specific object? What did it look like in text? Typically, you're going to drive that through a CI/CD pipeline, though. So this is just a very high-level view of the application. When I think about the application, I also want to understand its overall health. And if I look at any of these apps, because they might be spread out over multiple clusters, sometimes it might be hard to put together a complete dashboard that allows me to see its health. And the powerful thing here is that because we have visibility about those apps, we're able to actually bring up a Grafana dashboard and view that overall application health. So let's talk about what we do once we have all of that search data and I know it's out there and running. The next thing I really care about is actually running applications. So here we can see all of the application objects that are deployed. We're actually creating a topology view of this data. There's a couple of basic concepts. I won't get into all of those right now, but the basic idea is we are pulling versions out of channels. We're creating a subscription and placing that on a cluster. Placement is declarative, so I can match it against various labels. And then once it's placed in a cluster, all of the components are actually deployed. In addition to the ability to push applications onto clusters, we can also build views of the application health in Grafana and also manage the overall events for those applications as well. And then just to wrap up, just because of time, let's take a quick look at security and compliance. So again, this idea of being able to declare what are the various policies I need to define and enforce, and how do I categorize those? So here in this example, we've got policies for personal cardholder information, or PCI. We've got policies for HIPAA, policies for FISMA, and I can see the violations. Now, each of the policies themselves reflects a very specific concern. For example, my CIS policy tells me what violations I have, and again, it's just representing YAML, but it's telling me what specific CIS concerns I care about, which ones I might want to exclude, and I can see which clusters are currently violating that. For many of the policies, because they're template driven, I can actually define them as a enforce behavior versus simply an audit or inform. And in this case, if I enforce a policy, it will correct whenever it finds something that's out of compliance. And due to time, I'm not going to take you through the rest of the event management and the application monitoring, et cetera, but we can dive into that maybe with a follow-up. I will leave you with one last slide, which if you are still new to this idea of Kubernetes, you're still trying to understand all the different moving parts, do take a look. You can take a picture of this QR code and download a free copy of the book that we co-authored between Jake Kitchener and Brad Topol and myself. And with that, I thank you for your time. And as always, if you have feedback, please do let us know. And have a great day.